The rain had been falling for hours, turning the streets into long mirrors that reflected the flickering neon signs above. The air was cold, heavy with the smell of wet stone and rusted metal. Most people had gone inside by now, hiding in warm rooms, sipping hot drinks, waiting for the night to pass. But one figure was still out there, walking slowly through the empty streets. He was behind the counter of his small repair shop, counting the last credits of the day, when the door opened without warning. A gust of cold air rushed in, carrying the sound of rain and the faint echo of hurried footsteps. She stepped inside, a young woman, human, her hair plastered to her face from the rain, her clothes torn and stained. She stood there silently, breathing hard, her eyes fixed on him, as if she was deciding whether to speak or turn around and vanish back into the storm. He froze. His hand still holding a few coins. In this part of the galaxy, seeing another human was rare, and seeing one in such a state was almost unheard of. Her skin was pale from the cold, her hands trembling. Water dripped from the edge of her sleeve onto the wooden floor. She looked like she had been running for a long time, but there was no one chasing her in sight. Not yet. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The rain was the only sound between them, tapping softly against the shop's windows. Then she spoke, her voice low and rough, as if every word cost her effort. "I have nowhere else." "That," was all she said, 4 words, heavy enough to make him put the coins down. He could see it in her eyes, the exhaustion, the fear, and something else buried deeper, something like desperation. He had seen fear before, plenty of times, but this was different. This was someone who had been stripped of everything: shelter, safety, trust, and was standing at the very edge of giving up. The streets outside were not kind to humans. The alien majority in this city saw them as unwanted, even dangerous. Some shops put signs on their doors that read "No humans allowed." He had faced his share of insults over the years, but he had learned to keep his head down, to stay invisible. Now this girl had walked into his life without warning, and she was anything but invisible. "Close the door," he said quietly. She glanced back over her shoulder, then shut it. The rain sound became muffled, but the tension in the air only grew sharper. He gestured for her to sit, but she stayed near the door, like an animal unsure if the hand reaching out was to help or to strike. The smell of the street clung to her: wet pavement, dust, a faint trace of something metallic. "You're human," he said, not as a question, but as a statement. She gave a small nod. "That's the problem." He wanted to ask who she was, where she had come from, but he could see she wasn't ready to answer. Her eyes kept flicking to the window, as if expecting someone to appear out of the dark. She pulled the hood of her jacket tighter around her face, hiding as much of herself as she could. The way she stood told him she had been hunted before and was still running. A siren wailed in the distance, long and sharp, cutting through the rain. Her shoulders tensed. It was the sound of the city's security drones, the ones programmed to find and remove unregistered species from certain districts. He knew the sound well. Once you heard it enough times, you never forgot. "Are they after you?" he asked. Her answer was a bitter laugh that didn't sound like laughter at all. "They've been after me since I got here." She didn't explain, and he didn't push. He could feel the weight of her silence. It was the kind that hid dangerous truths that could get both of them in trouble if they came out. Still, he couldn't just send her back into the rain. Something in her voice, in her eyes, told him she'd already been through enough for one lifetime. He moved from behind the counter and walked toward her slowly. She didn't step back, but she didn't relax either. Up close, he could see the dirt smudged on her cheek, the torn fabric of her jacket, and the small scar along her jawline. She had the look of someone who had fought to survive, even if it meant losing pieces of herself along the way. "You can stay here for now," he said. For the first time since she walked in, she looked directly at him without that guarded wall. In her eyes, it wasn't trust, not yet, but it was close enough. She gave a small nod and stepped away from the door, her boots leaving wet prints across the floor. She sat on the chair near the heater, holding her hands out to the weak warmth. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the streets clean for a moment before the dirt returned. Somewhere in the distance, another siren wailed closer this time. He knew this wasn't just a random night.
Oh.
Trouble had walked into his shop wearing a soaked jacket and human eyes. And Trouble never came alone. As he looked at her shivering form, he had a feeling that whatever she was running from was about to find both of them. And when it did, the quiet life he had built here would be gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. The heater in the corner rattled softly, but the room still felt cold. She sat close to it, rubbing her hands together, eyes fixed on the small glow like she was trying to remember what warmth felt like. He stayed by the counter, leaning against it, watching her carefully. The rain outside had eased to a steady drizzle, but the streets were far from safe. In this city, the law wasn't just against humans, it was built to crush them. Every rule, every regulation, every checkpoint was designed to make life impossible for their kind. The aliens called it public safety. Everyone knew it was something else entirely. He had learned long ago how to survive here by staying quiet, avoiding attention, keeping his head down. But she had walked straight into the heart of danger, and now she was sitting in his shop, dripping water on the floor. "What's your name?" she asked. She hesitated, eyes flicking toward the window as if the answer might give her away. "Does it matter? Only if you want me to help you." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't speak. He could tell she was weighing her options, the kind of calculation you only made when the wrong word could cost you your life. The silence between them was broken by a faint hum outside. He recognized it instantly, the scanning drone. Its sound was low, almost like a wasp hovering too close to your ear, but it made his skin prickle. She heard it too. Her hands gripped the edge of the chair until her knuckles turned white. "They patrol this area every night," he said quietly. "Looking for people like you?" She gave a bitter smile that didn't reach her eyes. "People like me are easy to find. You stand out." He didn't argue. It was true. Humans didn't blend in here. Not in their skin, not in their shape, not even in the way they moved. The aliens said it was instinct, that you could always tell when something didn't belong. He glanced at the locked door, then at her. "Why are they after you?" For a moment she didn't answer, her gaze locked on the thin curtain covering the front window. Then, in a voice so low he almost didn't hear it, she said, "Because I'm not supposed to exist here." The words hung in the air like a shadow. He wanted to ask more, but the hum of the drone grew louder. A faint blue light moved across the window, the scanner sweeping the street. She pulled her hood up, shrinking into the chair. He moved to the front of the shop and turned off the lights. They stood in silence. The only sound, the slow, deliberate buzz of the machine outside. The scanner beam paused at the shop door, glowing faintly through the thin gap. His heart beat faster. If they came inside, there would be questions. If they found her, there would be no questions, only consequences. The beam finally moved on. Drifting down the street, the hum fading into the distance, he let out a slow breath. She didn't move until the sound was completely gone. "They think humans are dangerous," she said suddenly, her voice sharp now, anger breaking through the fear. "They say we start trouble, we spread disease, we bring chaos. That's what they tell people, so when the law takes us away, no one asks where we go." He stayed quiet. He had heard all of this before, and he knew it was only half the truth. The other half was worse. "I've been to 6 shelters in the last month," she continued. "Every one of them threw me out once they saw my face. I tried sleeping in the tunnels, but they're not safe. Not for someone like me." "Then why come here?" he asked. She looked at him for a long moment, as if deciding how much to say. Finally, she leaned forward slightly. "Because you're human too, and I didn't know where else to go." The words caught him off guard. It had been years since anyone said something like that to him. Years since another human looked at him not as a stranger, but as one of their own. Outside, the rain began to pick up again, tapping against the window like restless fingers. "You can stay here tonight," he said at last. "But if the patrols come back, we'll need to move quickly." She nodded, though her eyes still carried that restless energy. Like someone who knew running was the only thing keeping her alive, he brought her a dry blanket and a small cup of water. She accepted them quietly, but when he turned away, he caught her glancing at the door again, not with relief, but with worry. It was then he realized something. She wasn't just hiding from the law, she was hiding from someone else. And if that someone was looking for her, it was only a matter of time. Before they found his shop, the rain had faded to a thin mist, but the streets outside were still quiet, too quiet for this part of the city. The shop's heater hummed softly, throwing out a weak circle of warmth, yet she didn't seem to feel it.
Ow.
Her gaze kept darting toward the door as if expecting it to open at any moment. He leaned on the counter, arms crossed, studying her carefully. She had been sitting in the same chair since she arrived, but her posture wasn't relaxed. It was the tense stillness of someone ready to run. "Who are you really hiding from?" he asked. Her eyes flicked up to meet his, and for the first time he saw something sharper than fear in them, a hint of defiance. "Not the patrols," she said slowly. "They're just the hounds. I'm running from the ones who hold the leash." He frowned. "The upper district?" She gave a short nod. "The ones who live above the clouds in their shining towers. They think they own everything down here, including people like me." The upper district. Everyone in the city knew about it, but few ever saw it. It was where the alien elite lived, far above the rain and the dirt, surrounded by light and luxury. Down here, they were just a rumor, a shadow stretching across the streets. Up there, they were gods who walked in flesh. "How did you end up there?" he asked. Her jaw tightened, as if the memory itself was a wound she didn't want to open. "I was taken, not arrested, collected, like a thing they could keep." He felt a slow anger stir inside him. He had heard whispers about humans being kept in private estates, dressed up like pets, paraded in front of guests as curiosities. But hearing it from her was different. It made the stories real. "I escaped 2 nights ago," she continued. "I didn't plan it. The chance came, and I took it. I ran until my legs felt like they would break." He studied her face. She wasn't telling him everything. "People didn't send half the upper district's guards chasing you just because. You ran away. What did you take?" he asked quietly, her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment it looked like she wouldn't answer. Then her hand slipped into her jacket pocket, and she pulled something out. It was small, no bigger than a closed fist, but it glowed faintly from within. It's like it was holding its own piece of starlight. The light pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat. He stared at it. "What is that?" "A key," she said. "Yes. For a door, for something much bigger, something they think belongs to them." Before he could ask more, the sound came. 3 slow knocks on the door. Not the sharp rap of a customer, not the heavy pounding of patrols. This was deliberate, steady, and patient, like the person on the other side already knew they had all the time in the world. Her eyes went wide. She shoved the glowing object back into her pocket and pressed herself against the wall. Out of sight from the door, he moved quietly to the window and pulled the curtain just enough to see. An alien stood outside, tall and lean, his armor dark and polished, reflecting the dim streetlights. His eyes glowed faintly in the shadows, and his mouth curved into a smile that was anything but friendly. The knocks came again. "Open the door," the alien called, his voice smooth but carrying a weight of command. He didn't move. He knew that voice, the kind used by people who didn't need to shout to be dangerous. "We're looking for something," the alien continued. "Something stolen from the upper district. We believe it's here." The girl pressed her hands over her mouth to keep from breathing too loudly. He spoke back, keeping his voice calm. "I don't have what you're looking for." The alien chuckled softly. "We'll see." The handle turned once, testing the lock, then stopped. The alien didn't push. Instead, he stepped closer to the glass, looking in with those glowing eyes scanning every shadow. His gaze lingered on the wet footprints still drying on the floor. The tension stretched thin, a second heavier than the last. Then, far away, the sharp boom of an explosion echoed through the streets, followed by alarms. The alien's head turned slightly, listening. "This isn't over," he said, stepping back into the rain. He walked away without hurry, disappearing. into the mist, like a shadow fading at dawn. They waited in silence until the sound of his steps was gone. She pulled her hands away from her mouth and whispered, "That's him. He was the one keeping me." He stared at her. "And he's not going to stop looking." She nodded. "Not until he gets the key back. Or me." The heater's hum seemed louder now, but the room felt colder than before. He realized then that letting her stay had not just put him in danger, it had drawn the attention of the upper district itself. And that kind of attention never ended well. The rain had stopped, but the streets outside were still wrapped in mist, a thin silver haze that made every shadow stretch longer than it should. Inside the repair shop, the air felt heavier than before, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. She hadn't moved from the corner since the armored alien left. Her knees were drawn close to her chest, her hood hiding most of her face. He stood near the counter, looking toward the locked door, as if expecting the knock to come again at any second. It didn't take long. A.D. Faint metallic click came from room. Outside, the sound of boots stepping on the wet metal grating just beyond the entrance. Then silence. Whoever was out there wasn't in a hurry. They were waiting. The door didn't swing open, but it shifted slightly as if touched. Through the frosted glass panel, a tall shadow formed. The figure didn't push inside, they simply stood there, filling the doorway like a piece of the night that had decided to take shape. Then came the voice. Smooth, calm, dangerous. "You didn't answer my question earlier." He didn't move closer. "And I already told you I don't have what you're looking for." The figure chuckled, a sound that made the hairs on his neck stand up. "I wasn't asking if you have it. I was asking if you're willing to give it back." Her breathing grew sharper. She knew the voice. She didn't need to see his face. She gripped the edge of her sleeve, knuckles pale, as if holding herself together by force. The alien took a slow step forward, close enough that the faint glow of the streetlight caught the edge of his armor. Water slid down its surface like liquid glass, tilted his head slightly, as if he could see straight through the door. "You're hiding something," the alien said. "You're hiding someone." The words hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. He kept his tone steady. "You've got the wrong place." The alien didn't argue. Instead, he stepped back just enough for his hand to lift into view, holding a small black device. With a sharp tap of his thumb, a thin beam of green light swept across the door. It passed through the walls, scanning the shop's interior. She shrank against the wall. But he knew the scan could pick up movement, heat, even the faint hum of the glowing key in her pocket. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," the alien said, almost like he was disappointed. "Do you know what happens to humans caught breaking the law here?" He didn't answer. He knew. Everyone knew. A sound echoed from the far end of the street, the sharp mechanical hiss of another patrol drone powering up. The alien turned, his head slightly listening. "You're lucky," he said at last. "I have other matters to deal with tonight. We'll speak again." He stepped back, boots clicking softly against the wet ground, and vanished into the mist without another word. Only after the sound of his footsteps faded completely did she let out the breath she'd been holding. "That was him," she said. Quietly, "He's not just looking for the key, he's looking for me." He glanced toward the door, then back at her. "And you're certain he won't give up?" She shook her head. "He's the kind who doesn't stop, not until he gets what he wants." He walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside just enough to watch the street. The mist shifted, swallowing the last trace of the alien shadow. "You need to leave," he said finally. Her head lifted sharply. "You want me to go?" "I want you alive," he replied. "And if you stay here, neither of us will be for long." She stood slowly, her movements stiff from sitting too long in the cold. But there was no anger in her face, only a quiet resolve. "If I leave now, he'll find me before I reach the next district. The key will be his again, and whatever they plan to do with it will happen. Is that what you want?" He stared at her, torn between reason and the unsettling pull of something larger, something he didn't yet understand. "What is the key for?" he asked. She reached into her pocket and pulled it out again. The glow was brighter now, pulsing. Faster, as if reacting to something nearby. It's a locator, she said, but not for anything in the city. It's calling to something buried deep, something they've been keeping hidden for years, and only humans can use it. A shiver ran through him. And you think I'm going to help you? Her eyes didn't leave his. Think you're the only one who can? The heater gave a tired hiss, the mist outside swirling like restless ghosts. Somewhere far off, the patrol drone's siren started up again. Growing louder with each passing second, he knew then that the quiet life he'd built here was over. The moment she had stepped into his shop, his path had shifted, and there was no turning it back. The knock at the door had been a warning. Next time it wouldn't be a conversation. The night pressed in around the shop, the mist outside curling against the glass like it wanted to slip inside. The heater rattled, fighting against the cold, but the air felt heavy, thick, with everything left unsaid. She was still standing near the wall, the hood shadowing her face, the faint glow from inside her jacket casting an almost invisible shimmer across her hands. He knew that whatever she carried wasn't just valuable, it was dangerous. "Take it out," he said. She didn't move at first, her eyes scanning his face as if to measure how much she could trust him. Then, slowly, she reached into her jacket and pulled it free. It looked small enough to hide in a pocket, but its light made the entire room feel different. A soft blue glow pulsed through the crystal-like surface, each beat perfectly steady, like a living thing breathing in. The palm of her hand. Inside, shapes shifted faintly, almost as if a galaxy was trapped within, swirling in silence. He stared at it, unable to look away. "What is it?" "It's called the Meridian Key," she said quietly. "It's not a weapon. Not by itself. But it can wake something that is." His chest tightened. "Something here?" She nodded. "Something they buried long ago. Ship older than any empire in this sector. They found it centuries back, but they never figured out how to control it. That's because the control systems are locked to human DNA." Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried the weight of the truth. They keep humans alive for 3 reasons: to work, to amuse them, or to open things like this. When I was taken to the upper district, I thought it was because they wanted another pet. I was wrong. They wanted a key they could hold in a cage. The glow from the object deepened, pulsing faster as if reacting to her touch. He stepped closer, but stopped halfway, sensing its strange energy even from a distance. "How did you get it?" he asked. Her lips tightened. "They let me near it. Thought I didn't understand what it was. I listened, I learned, and when the chance came, I took it. And now they want it back," he said. "They need it back," she corrected. "Without it, the ship stays locked beneath the city, sleeping. With it, they can wake it, and when they do, the galaxy will belong to them." The heater clicked off, leaving the shop in near silence. He could hear his own heartbeat, could feel the faint hum from the object in her hand like it was syncing with his pulse. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that you've been running through the streets, chased by the upper district, carrying the one thing that could give them an unstoppable weapon?" Her eyes didn't waver. "Yes. And you brought it to me." Her voice softened but didn't break. "Because you're human. And because if they catch me, they will break me until I open it for them. If you help me, we can take it somewhere safe, somewhere they can't reach it." Safe. The word didn't mean much in this city. He turned toward the window. Outside, the mist shifted. And for a moment he thought he saw movement, a faint shadow crossing under the dim streetlight before melting back into the fog. "How far can we get before they find us?" he asked. "That depends on how quickly we move," she said, "and how much you're willing to risk." He glanced at the door, remembering the slow, deliberate knock from earlier. "They already know you were here, which means they know about me now too." She took a step closer, the glow in her hands painting her face in pale blue light. "Then it's already too late to pretend this isn't your problem." The truth in her words stung. He had kept his life simple for years. Work, eat, sleep, stay out of trouble. But trouble had come in with the rain, and it had a name now. Outside. The sound of distant footsteps echoed faintly, too measured to be random. They were searching. He looked back at her. "If we run, where do we go?" She didn't hesitate. There's a network of tunnels under the city. Some lead beyond the patrol zones. We can get to the old transit hub. There are still ships. There, if we reach one, we can leave the planet before they realize where we've gone. And if we don't, he asked. She slipped the meridian key back into her jacket, the glow fading into shadow. Then you'll see what the upper district really does with humans who say no. The air in the room felt colder again. He walked to the counter, grabbed a small pack, and began filling it with supplies, tools, water, a few ration bars. His hands moved quickly, but his mind was racing. He wasn't sure if he was making the right choice. But he knew one thing. If he let her leave alone the next time he saw her, she'd be in chains, holding the key for someone else. And that was something he couldn't live with. The mist outside had thickened into a heavy fog, turning the street into a white tunnel where shapes moved like ghosts. Somewhere beyond the haze, faint voices echoed too far to hear the words, but close enough to know they were searching. He swung the pack over his shoulder and checked the door. "We move now," he said. She stood ready, her jacket zipped, hood low over her face. The glow of the meridian key was hidden, but he could still feel its strange pull, like it was alive and aware of where they were. The door opened with a soft creak, and cold air spilled inside. They slipped out quickly, closing it behind them. The fog swallowed them instantly, dampening the sound of their steps, but also hiding the danger just beyond sight. They kept close to the walls. Moving through the narrow back streets, the water on the ground reflected the faint glow of street lamps above. It's broken every few seconds by the dark shapes of patrol drones gliding silently overhead. Every time a beam of light cut through the fog, it froze, pressing into the shadows, until it passed. "How far to the tunnels?" he asked quietly. "For blocks," she replied. "But the last block is open ground, no cover." He didn't like the sound of that. In this city, open ground meant open targets. They reached an intersection and paused. The sound of boots on wet stone came from the left, steady, organized, too many to be random pedestrians. He motioned for her to follow him right instead, slipping into a narrow alley that smelled of rust and old rainwater. Halfway down, a shape moved in the fog ahead. A patrol drone emerged, its scanner beam slicing through the mist. They ducked behind. A stack of crates crouching low. The beam swept over the alley, stopped for a moment, then moved on. But before they could breathe, a low voice came from behind them. "You didn't think you could hide forever, did you?" They turned. The enforcer stood at the mouth of the alley, armor glistening with moisture, his glowing eyes fixed on them. The fog seemed to pull away from him, as if even the mist didn't dare touch. She instinctively stepped back, bumping into the crates, stepped in front of her without thinking. "You're not leaving this city," the enforcer said calmly. "Give me the key, and I'll make it quick." The sound of more boots approached from both ends of the alley. They were surrounded. He looked at her. "Run when I say." She shook her head. "You won't make it." "Wait." "Not the point," he muttered. The enforcer took a step forward, and that was when the key reacted. Even through her jacket, its blue glow flared brighter, spilling out into the fog like a flare. The enforcer's eyes narrowed. "She's activating it," he snapped. "To the soldiers closing in? Take them alive." That was the moment they ran. He grabbed her arm and yanked her toward the sidewall where a narrow gap between two buildings offered a thin escape. They squeezed through, scraping shoulders against cold metal, emerging into another street. This one darker, abandoned, the lamps above long dead. The sound of pursuit was immediate. Soldiers didn't need light, their scanners would track every heat signature. "This way," she said, pulling him toward a broken stairway that led down beneath the street. The entrance to the tunnels was half hidden behind a pile of rusted scrap. He shoved the debris aside just enough for them to slip through, sealing it again behind them. The air inside was damp and heavy. The walls lined with old pipes that dripped water into the shallow pools on the floor. Their footsteps echoed, but at least here they were out of sight. "Keep moving," she urged. "They know we went underground. They'll send drones." They moved quickly through the twisting corridors. The further they went, the older the tunnels became. The walls cracked. The air colder, The smell of the city replaced by something deeper, almost ancient. At one point, a faint humming filled the air, and she froze. "They're scanning from above," she whispered. "We have to get deeper." They reached a rusted metal door with a faded symbol scratched into it, a circle with 3 lines through the middle. She pushed it open, revealing a narrow passage barely wide enough for one person at a time. The sound of boots on metal echoed somewhere behind them. The enforcer's voice followed, calm and certain. "You can't run forever. The city belongs to us." They pushed forward, the path sloping downward. The key in her jacket pulsed faster now, as if sensing they were closer to something it wanted. "How? Much farther?" he asked, his breath fogging in the cold. "Not far," she said. "If we reach the hub, there's a lift that will take us below their scanners. After that, we're almost free." Almost. Behind them, the echo of pursuit grew. Louder. In the dim light of the tunnel, shadows moved, closing in, and as they turned the final corner, a figure stepped into their path. The enforcer. He had come ahead somehow, cutting them off. The glow of his eyes lit the narrow passage, and the faint smile on his face said he knew he had them. The tunnel was so narrow, the walls brushed their shoulders, the damp air clinging to their skin. The enforcer stood ahead, blocking the only way forward, his armor casting a faint, cold glow. Behind them, the sound of boots and drone wings closed, and they were trapped. His voice was steady, almost calm. "You've run far enough. Hand over the key, and I'll spare your lives." She stepped closer to him, her hand slipping inside her jacket. "You're not getting it," she said. The enforcer's eyes narrowed. "You don't even know what you're holding." Her gaze didn't waver. "I know enough." Then she pulled the meridian key into the open. Its light was no longer soft. It blazed in her palm, flooding the tunnel with a brilliant blue glow. The hum it made was louder now, vibrating through the stone around them. The enforcer raised a hand, signaling the soldiers behind him to stop. "You'll destroy yourself," he warned. "Maybe," she said, "but you won't have it." Before anyone could move, she slammed the key against the ground. The moment it touched stone, a surge of energy exploded outward, a wave of light so strong it knocked the enforcer backward. The tunnel walls shook, dust falling from the ceiling. The hum became a deep, rolling sound, like something vast had just taken a breath after a long sleep. "What did you do?" The man shouted, shielding his eyes from the glare. She looked at him, her expression steady. "I woke it up." The ground beneath them trembled. Cracks formed along the walls, glowing faintly with the same blue light as the key. From somewhere, far below, a mechanical groan rose, old metal shifting, ancient systems powering on for the first time in centuries. The enforcer scrambled to his feet, his calm replaced with urgency. "Stop it. You don't understand what's down there." The shaking only grew stronger. Water splashed from the tunnel floor as they tried to keep their balance. "Move!" she shouted to the man. She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward a side passage that had split open in the wall. The soldiers were struggling to regain their footing, the drones swaying in the air. They slipped into the new passage just as the floor behind them cracked wide open. From the darkness below, a massive shape began to rise, black metal covered in glowing lines, each pulse matching the heartbeat of the key's light. It wasn't just a ship, it was something older, more dangerous. Its surface shimmered like liquid steel, and its engines roared to life with a sound that felt like thunder trapped in the earth. The man stared in awe. "That was under the city this whole time?" She nodded, her breath quick. "They found it long ago, but they could never wake it. Now it's awake, and it knows who freed it." The enforcer barked orders to his soldiers, but their voices were drowned by the roar of the ship's engines. The ground shook again, harder this time. As the vessel forced its way upward, through the collapsing tunnels, "We need to get to the command deck," she said. "If they take it, everything we've done is for nothing." He didn't argue. They ran along the side passage, the walls splitting and crumbling as the ship tore through the earth beside them. A burst of blue light from above revealed a platform ahead, a maintenance lift, half buried in rubble. They jumped onto it just as the structure shuddered. The lift rose quickly, pulled by forces that had been sleeping for centuries. The higher they went, the louder the ship's systems became, each sound deep and alive. When the lift stopped, they found themselves inside a vast chamber, the heart of the ship. The walls curved high above, glowing lines running across their surface. In the center stood a raised platform, surrounded by consoles and strange alien controls. She stepped forward, the key still glowing in her hand. As she approached, the consoles lit up one by one, responding to her presence. A low, deep voice filled the chamber, speaking in a language he didn't understand. She did. "It's waiting for a pilot," she said quietly. He stared at her. "You mean you?" She shook her head. "No, us." "Hey." The enforcer's voice echoed from the far end of the chamber. He had followed them in, his armor scorched from the blast, but his determination unshaken. Step away from the controls. She didn't turn. "You're too late." The key's glow flared once more, brighter than before. The ship's systems roared, the floor beneath them humming with raw power. Outside, the walls of the chamber split open, revealing the night sky over the city. For a moment, the entire skyline was bathed in blue light. Patrol drones spun out of control. The alien streets below plunged into chaos. The enforcer lunged forward. But the ship lifted from the ground, throwing him back. The chamber tilted as the engines pushed harder, breaking free of the city's grip. As they rose higher, the man looked at her. "Where now?" She gripped the controls, her eyes locked on the stars above. "Somewhere they can't follow." Ship's engines thundered, and in a burst of light, they vanished into the sky, leaving the city below in silence, and the upper district without its most guarded secret.